Hello and welcome to GuyLogic. My name is Temko and today we are taking a look at Paladins, Defenders of the Realm. The beta edition at least. So the game is in closed beta and developed by Hi-Rez Studios, the same people that brought you Smite, which we all love and enjoy as an alternative to League of Legends. And now they're coming in with an alternative for Team Fortress 2. Now they're not the only ones, obviously Overwatch is coming as well, and there's a couple other people and studios working on similar titles. So what does Paladins bring to the table? And how is it going to be interesting? And the big question, of course, can it compete to the behemoth that is appearing to be Overwatch? Let's get into it, shall we? So, in its core, Paladins is a team-based first-person shooter, more or less. It has some Smite-esque or Dota-esque elements, but they're limited and far in between. But you can definitely see the influences the development team has had from Smite in terms of the way they do UI, the way they do in-game chat or voice chat alternatives, so to say, and a couple of other things. And the game is definitely in beta and there's a ton of content missing, but I felt the current core gameplay was about as fleshed out as I can expect it to be for a first look at the beta. The game is probably going to be free to play, and there is one major thing that annoys me about the free to play model in this game. And we're looking at it, and it is called chests. These chests you buy for 50 gems, the gems you buy for real money. You can also get chests by leveling up yourself as an account. Mine is level 7, and you get a couple of chests that way as well. These chests contain 5 cards, but they are also the only way to unlock character skins, and these are random, which I really don't like. If I have a couple of characters I really enjoy and I want to get skins for them, I can't. I have to gamble on these radiant chests to get those skins. I'm not sure that will change in the future, but right now, that is my biggest gripe with the business model. Other than that, all the champions available in the game are fully unlocked. I'm not sure they are going to be locked in, but there is very few champions, and I'm hoping they're adding more. They just added Androxus in the last patch, so they are adding champions as the beta progresses. I'm hoping they add a bunch more before the game releases. At the very least, about 20 to 25, so you have some ability to flesh out your teams and the meta. Now, the one thing that makes Paladins distinct from Overwatch is its deck building system. Each champion has certain cards. These cards you combine into a 5-card deck. These decks are then used in the game as a sort of rune or mastery system if you're familiar with League of Legends. You use these to customize your character the way you want to play that character. For example, this is Cassie. She's an archer. So she's a medium range, medium attack rate DPS character. And I have picked for her abilities that allow me to disengage or lock down targets more or less. So for example, I have an ability that as soon as I hit a target with disengage, which is one of my abilities, the shot dazes them for 1.5 seconds. And when I level up this card in game, you can do that up to 4 times. While your character levels, you get 1.5 seconds extra per rank. Same goes for misdirection. Enemies hit by blast shot, which is another ability of hers, are confused for 1 second. So unlike League of Legends, where you level up your character's abilities by leveling, all your abilities at their most efficient from day one in terms of what they can do, but by leveling up these cards, you stack up effects that get progressively stronger as the game goes further. You can also craft these cards. So each character has a couple of cards. Some characters have a few more, some characters have a few less. This is beta, so I'm sure they'll add a bunch more cards. You also have common decks, which is shared by all your characters. These are just cards that do a bunch of stuff, and I'll show you a bit here. This is one that reduces all cooldowns. There is one that reduces the amount of time it takes to get mounted. There's one that you gain more experience in-game, so that is leveling during a match. So you can get a bunch of these cards, and you can customize this however you want to for your particular playstyle. You can craft all these cards using card crafting. For example, I have unlocked all common cards, so I can't craft anymore. But each character has a bunch of cards you can unlock. So Cassie, I have 11 out of 14 cards unlocked. If I go here, you'll see I have all legendary cards for Cassie unlocked. I have all epic cards for her unlocked. So I've crafted all those, and I can craft a few more rares. So I'm going to craft one more rare. There we go. I've got a new rare card. It says Toxic Arrows. Taking a target reduces the healing they receive by 25% for 2 seconds. Which is pretty interesting, which means once I level this up 4 ranks, and if each upgrade is 25 per rank, which it says it is, That means that once I hit 4 ranks with this arrow, I will reduce healing by 100% for 2 seconds, meaning they will not get healed, which is pretty cool. And we can unlock 2 common cards. Now, you can unlock these cards. Let me unlock both of them real fast. Unlock these cards by spending gold. You get gold by completing matches, by winning or losing. You get a bunch of gold. You get gold by leveling up various characters, much like Heroes of the Storm does this. And you get gold by leveling up your own level. So there's a couple of ways to get gold. And you use these gold to unlock cards. You can also get these radiant chests from drops by leveling yourself or by winning matches on random. And once you unlock a loot chest, they appear here. They also give you 5 random cards, or they give you a small chance at unlocking a skin or weapon skin for your character. This is random, as I said earlier, and this is also my biggest gripe because these are random. I don't like random loot drops because I never know what I'll get. You can also get duplicate cards, and they just don't count. You'll just get a message, oh, you got this card. Congratulations. Oh, you already have this card. Tough fucking luck. I do not like that. Other than card crafting, you can also do appearance crafting, which is quite a bit more expensive, but it allows you to unlock weapon skins. So that takes a little bit more time. Loot chests, as I said, you can buy these and unlock them here as you want. And decks have champion and common decks. Once you have your decks set up for each champion you want to play, you can go ahead and queue up a champion. You do so in 4 different distinct modes. There's daily quests that reward a bunch of gold. I'm going to assume there's going to be more quests later on in the beta, but that is as it is right now. You have practice, which is you versus the bots. You have co-op, which is you plus people versus the bots. I really do not like the AI in this game. It is ridiculously bad and weak, so I hope they improve that quite a bit before release. You have casual matches, which is either solo versus enemy players or with a group versus enemy players. And you have challenge matches, which is 5v5 pre-bait teams. There is no actual ranked mode. You could call challenge match ranked mode, but it's not really. So I'm not sure what their plans are regarding that, but I'm going to assume they're going to implement some form of solo or at least team-based ranked mode. So that is the game's overall gameplay in a nutshell outside of the actual gameplay. So I have a pre-recorded map I played a bit earlier in casual mode, so we're gonna jump into that in a second, and I'll explain to you how the gameplay, the characters, and everything around that works for Paladins. Let's get into it, shall we? Once you queue up for a game, the queue starts running, and you can see I'm queued up for casual, obviously. While you're queued up, the game will still allow you to customize decks, customize champions, look at the store, etc. So you're not locked into this view. If you alt-tab to, let's say, check YouTube for this video while you're playing the game will pop up in the bottom right of your screen and have you go, hey, we have a match for you. Click here to go back to the game, which is pretty cool. Once your match has been found, each player votes for one of 4 modes: payload, capture only, survival, and capture and siege. While payload is a very distinct mode, the other 3 are more or less variations on the same. Go to a point, take that point, and kill enemy players. Now, you can see here, I voted for capture and siege. Other players apparently voted otherwise, and capture only has won. And the randomized chosen map for this game mode was Enchanted Forest. So we're gonna see that. Once you select your champion and your team selects their champions, you can see the enemy team champions. At that point, you can start customizing your character based on your available decks. At this point, you cannot edit your decks, you can only select them. So it's really important to have pre-built decks available for your character. Common decks are shared by all characters. You can swap those decks. Champion decks are your champion, and you can change skin, weapon, and different mounts. I do not have any of those unlocked for CASSIE, as I previously said, these are random drops, which is really annoying. But nonetheless, such is the situation. Once the customization phase is over, the match is going to start, and the game will load into the map. Now, the game's performance is bloody phenomenal, and I'll get into that after this bit. So if you're interested in performance and settings and stuff like that, I will get into that right after this match. Once you load into the game though, you can first upgrade one of your cards. You do so by pressing a button, you upgrade a card, and every time your character levels up, you can do so. Once you load into the game, it waits on all players to appear in the game before starting the capture point countdown. Now, this mode is capture only, which means that once the point is capped, we get a point, and the first team to get to 5 points, you can see that on the top of the screen, wins. Now, the game doesn't have integrated voice chat, and you can agree or disagree on whether or not that is a good thing. I personally prefer it not to have integrated voice chat because it is generally really badly done and really annoying. What the game does have is pre-made voiceover. You press the V button and you get a window of selections. This is pretty much the way they did it in Smite. In fact, I think they just lifted the ability wholesale from Smite, which is definitely not a bad thing. And the game has an overall distinct look and feel much like Smite. Now, once you spawn and once the game starts, your team gets to run out on a mount. And your mount has a higher movement speed, obviously, but you cannot fight on it. The goal of this map is to capture this point. And different enemies have different abilities, like you have. CASSIE is a medium range archer. She's pretty squishy, doesn't have a lot of armor, so she will fall over and die pretty fast. Once you respawn, you can run back to the point, and if one of your teammates or you have been smart enough to bring along your teleport device, which can be destroyed, you can get over to a point relatively fast after respawning, which is a pretty interesting mechanic where not only do you have to fight the enemy, you also have to think ahead and take a little bit of time to scout around, find enemies hiding around, find enemy traps, find enemy abilities, including the teleporter and the like. So there is a bit of a strategic element to this. The game is very heavy on team focus. As such, team play is of the most vital importance in this game. Now, obviously, this is a pug match where I'm playing with random people from all over the world. I have no idea who these people are, and I don't really have a way to communicate with them outside of voiceovers, which I do not yet understand. Okay, once a point has been captured, the next point starts spawning, and you'll have a couple of seconds to move away and fight. What I'm doing here, which is the most important, is trying to get enemies to be unable to join the next point. While the point capture system is all about standing on the capture point, you obviously don't want your squishiest characters, like my CASSIE, being on top of that point. You want your tanks, you want your bruisers, you want your heavy turret guys that have shields, that have armor, to be standing in the center of the point. The more people there are on a control point, the faster the point is capped. If there's 2 people, it doesn't cap twice as fast, but it does cap quite a bit faster. So it is pretty important to have as many people on the point as possible. That also makes you clustered and an easy target for big AoE abilities, which will get you killed pretty damn fast. The game does use a brush-based cover system. If you want to hide, it also has stealth mechanics in certain champions where they can turn invisible. And even though the brush system makes you invisible from a distance, as soon as enemies come somewhat closer, you will be able to see enemies that are hiding in the brush. Now, gameplay-wise, the game is not exactly a FPS. Even though aiming is definitely part of the game, and this is more so for certain champions than others, as some melee champions have massive AoE abilities hitting all around them, it is a bit forgiving in where you hit someone. It is not exactly exceedingly precise. So there is some leeway. It doesn't have the same twitch or precision requirements that a traditional FPS does, but it does give you that adrenaline-filled first-person combat rush. So there is that. One of the things I really enjoy about Paladins, which is something I also really enjoyed in Overwatch, is that each character feels very unique. Now, this is definitely something the games are very similar in. Each character is an archetype of a class in and of itself. But unlike Overwatch, you cannot switch characters mid-map. In fact, Overwatch is built all around switching characters to counter the enemy, and the enemy again switching characters to counter you. This game is a lot more about strategic planning, thinking ahead, teamwork, and picking your decks ahead of time. So there is some counterplay here, but it is not so much in champion selection as it is in deck customization, which is a pretty interesting twist on the whole phenomenon. Abilities are generally segmented in 2 types. Either you have single target abilities or AoE abilities, and these come in a few variants. You have abilities that are focused around damage, around healing, or at ground control, and most abilities are augmented by cards to provide that secondary aspect. So for example, my Q is a large knockback that pushes targets away from a point, and if I have a card, and I do, that once I hit them with a Q, it will also disarm them, preventing them from fighting back for about a second at max level. So there is some variety in what you can do with that. There is also a ultimate ability, which is on your E. So I'm not sure why they picked that, but the game uses Q, W for movement, obviously, E, F for combat. So it's a lot more like an FPS than it would a League of Legends or Dota in the control scheme. There's also quick leveling, which I never use, but what you can see is that in the bottom right, cards recharge based on use of your abilities. So some of these cards have cooldowns, some of the cards allow you to level them up again. So for example, if you level up twice really fast, one after the other, you might not be able to level up the same card twice because it might be on lockdown. Pretty interesting. I like that they've built in this anti-snowball feature. Now, snowballing is definitely a big part of the game. Your character getting higher levels obviously means that you get your cards unlocked faster to a higher degree, which means your abilities are stronger or their secondary effects are a lot stronger, and this feeds back into the gameplay. So snowballing is a major thing in this game. Now, whether or not that's a good thing, it depends on your preferred gameplay style. If you're playing League of Legends, you might disagree that snowballing is a good thing because that is a very negative thing in League of Legends. Counter snowballing and snowballing. But if you're a Dota player and you're looking at this, you might think snowballing is a very important aspect because that game is all about getting that snowball rolling as fast as possible. Paladins tries to do that, but it does place some limitation on enemies, such as the leveling of cards, such as few certain aspects and the over-reliance on teamwork. Now, a very important part of Paladins that isn't in Overwatch is that Paladins plays a lot more like a Dota-esque title or a Smite. The game is less about doing a objective with the team, but more about performing as well as you can and doing objectives on the side. Now, once you finish a match, you either win or lose, and the matches are pretty short. I think this one lasted less than 10 minutes, and most of them last under 15 minutes, which is pretty cool. You get a scoreboard, you can see how well you did, how well your allies did, how well your enemies did, how badly they did, obviously, and you can see from there what you can improve on. You get your scorecard, which has how much gold you got, how much experience you got, whether or not you leveled up, etc. So, the basic stuff you'd expect. As you can see from the gameplay so far, the game is first person, it is very active, it is really adrenaline filled, and all the matches are really short bits. So you can jump in, do a match, and then do something else. This is a very high contrast from Smite, a very high contrast from League of Legends or Dota, but not a high contrast when you compare it to Overwatch or Team Fortress 2, whose matches are also really short. So I keep giving up comparison with MOBAs, but that is not exactly correct or fair to this game. Even though it is still a 5v5 battle arena style game, it is a lot like Team Fortress 2 or Overwatch than it is a MOBA. Even though it does definitely have major influence on Smite. So, that was a bit of gameplay. You could see the capture mode. There's a capture and siege mode, which after capturing, you will go over to a siege tank, will spawn, move itself to the enemy base, and the enemy has to kill the siege tank, and you have to protect it, so it deals damage to their gates and core. They're all variants on the same go to this location, fight around this location, either capture or kill enemies on this location. The other variant is the bomb run, where you have to push a car to the enemy base, the enemy is defending, and based on how fast you get to checkpoints, you have a couple of steps to do this in. So those are the two distinct game modes, I would say. Now, I've talked a little bit about how the game plays. I haven't talked about how the game performs and what kind of settings and options menu you have. So to finish off this video, we're going to go into some options, settings, and talk about PC performance. Options wise, there is quite a bit to configure and set up. Now, the game runs absolutely fine at over 100 FPS on my GTX 780 on absolute maximum settings. VSync works great, there is no mouse smoothing or anything like that. So the game performance, even in this early beta, is pretty great. There are some bugs and animation issues and a few drops here and there when the game hitches. You could see those in the video earlier, or in the gameplay section earlier. But there is a couple of things that the game needs improvement on. But it is not the overall performance. There's just some hitches here and there. Resolution goes all the way up high. Screen has full screen and borderless window. Then they have windowed, so everything you'd expect. Anti-aliasing, inferno screen, world detail, shadow detail, texture detail, particle detail. This is as good an option menu as you would want for video settings. Even an FOV slider that goes from all the way from 70 to 100. Which I think I like 90 to 100. I like anything more than 100. It gives me a bit of a fisheye effect, I feel. But your preference may vary. Obviously, the higher FOV is, the more performance it takes to render that, because you're rendering more of a screen resolution. Audio settings, master effects, music, voice, and notification volume. This is an audio menu from heaven. Everything here as you might want it. Gameplay settings, minimap. Teams, enabled or disabled. This is displaying your teammates in terms of colors. Damage numbers, large to off. I'm not sure why you would turn that off. It's a really big indicator. Combat log, also very important to notice. and auto level cards. So if you're new to the game and you're not sure what these cards do and just want to play, just turn on auto level cards. It's on by default. And you will auto level the cards in the game and you don't have to do that manually. So that is pretty cool. Okay, so there is that. Controls. You have in-game tips, which I recommend turning on and keeping on. A Y-axis mouse smoothing, which should never be allowed. Gamepad, which you can play it on. I'm not sure how well the game plays on gamepads, nor do I know which kind of gamepads are supported because I am a mouse and keyboard user through and through and don't generally use gamepads at all. So again, keep in mind, I have no idea how it works on a gamepad. And key bindings with primary and secondary bindings. You can rebind, which is really good. I like that a lot. And obviously you have gamepad, which doesn't have rebindable keys, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, that is for the part. So options wise, the game is pretty much as complete as you'd like it. There is 2 omniscience here that I feel the game should add based on its color scheme as well as some of its overall gameplay elements. First, colorblind mode. About 7 to 10% of people in the world suffer from a variant of colorblind mode. Most of them have red-green colorblind mode. Implementing this is not a hard feature to implement. I've spoken to, I think, about a dozen game developers from smallest indies to people working on big AAAs, and they all agree it's not a big feature, but it's also not very high on any priority list if it is on a priority list at all, because it is not something generally driving sales. So I hope that the more people are aware that this is something that affects a fairly large chunk of people, the more game developers are going to implement this. So that is something I'm going to keep touting. Colorblind mode should be implemented, at the very least a red-green one. Though I would prefer the other variants would be implemented as well. It's not hard to do. It's not hard to do apparently, and it's not something that will affect people negatively in any way. It only has net positives, so do it. Something else I'm missing in the game, personally, is a way for me to benchmark the game, which is a bit of a shame because the game runs fine, but running against AI to see how the performance is, how the game looks, is a bit of a shame. I would like a benchmark tool. I hope they add something like that. Some other things I've not seen in the game at all is a replay mode. You have a kill replay in the map when you die, but there's no replay mode or there's no way to upload your videos unless you're editing or recording them locally. So there's nothing like that, no integration with Twitch, anything of the sort implemented at all. I really hope the game implements at the very least a replay mode or a spectator mode or something similar like that, and a way to save games so you can later upload them to YouTube, to Twitch, to whatever medium you want. Because as with all competitive based games, and this is definitely a competitive based game, that is a very integral part of gameplay and something I feel the game would need to get an edge out on Overwatch. So that's the last point I'm going to try and make with this video. How will this game fare against the behemoth coming from the middle of the Blizzard homeland, Overwatch? I am really not sure. Obviously, the game's business models are very different. Overwatch will be a buy-to-play game with later expansions coming out, while Paladins will be a free-to-play game with microtransactions of some description, whether that be just the chests or founder pack or whatever else. They're going to be microtransactions. We can pretty much guarantee that. Gameplay-wise, they're pretty similar. You play 5v5, Overwatch is 6v6, which is all fine. Level up your character in the game, get some unlocked, get some abilities, etc, etc. The game modes are pretty similar. The payload mode for Overwatch is basically the same as it is for Team Fortress 2, as it is for Paladins. There's no real difference there. So, aesthetic-wise, they have a bit of similarity. Overwatch obviously has a much higher budget coming from Blizzard, even has a full CGI 5-minute short movie. I mean, Overwatch looks pretty fucking spectacular. This game holds its ground. It's not amazing, but it does hold its ground with a pretty interesting aesthetic and pretty unique characters overall. Now, how will it hold its ground against Overwatch? And I genuinely am not sure. I feel that if the game implements some social features such as Twitch streaming or such as save files, such as replays, such as things like that, it will stand a much greater chance to at least hold its ground against Overwatch. It will not beat out Overwatch. Overwatch is already way too big and it's not even available for the general public. As soon as a streamer comes online on Overwatch, thousands flock into it on Twitch. Every video being developed by Overwatch is getting 1 million people back on Gamescom. Paladins had a queue of about, let's say, 30 minutes, and this was in August. And Overwatch had a queue of over 3 hours, and the booth was bigger to boot. So there is a major difference in popularity, even pre-release. So I hope Paladins does get its niche, much like Smite has found its niche in the gameplay section of MOBA titles. It's not competing with League, it's not competing with Dota, but it has a steady player base with interesting gameplay and a dedicated support. So I hope that Hi-Rez can do the same with Paladins. I really do. But obviously, time and development will tell. Okay, so that was my beta impressions of Paladins so far. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, press that like button below. If you didn't, well, press the dislike button. It's there for exactly that reason. If you have a comment, please put it down below. Tell us what we did great. Tell us what we can do better. And if you want to see more content like this or other critical content on the channel, just press that subscribe button below and we will deliver. So until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on GuyLogic.